My name is Joe LaBriola. I joined the Stone Center for Inequality Dynamics in July 2022. I am a research assistant professor in the Survey Research Center at the University of Michigan. As a sociologist, I study housing, wealth, and racial inequality in the contemporary United States. Housing is the largest portion of wealth for most Americans, and there are also great racial inequalities in housing in the United States, both because of racial inequalities in income and wealth, but also because of housing policies that privilege incumbent homeowners and thereby increase racial inequalities. I did my grad school at UC Berkeley. The San Francisco Bay Area was experiencing really acute crisis of housing affordability at the time. And so I became really interested in what sort of policies were causing the housing affordability crisis, as well as what was the effect that rising house prices was having on wealth inequalities between homeowners and renters, and in particular, the types of groups of people who are more likely to be homeowners versus the types of people who are more likely to be renters. So in one paper, I looked in particular at how rising house prices affected the trajectory of the white-black wealth gap over the last 40 years. And what I found is that rising house prices account for almost all of the growth in the median white-black wealth gap since 1984. In another paper, I looked at some of the factors that may have caused California cities to pass policies that restricted the production of new housing, which have been a strong contributor to the affordable housing crisis in California. Even after controlling for other factors, cities that were less black than the rest of their metro area were significantly more likely to pass regulations that restricted housing supply. And this suggests that cities may have passed restrictive land use regulation out of a motivation to exclude nearby black residents from coming in. So some colleagues and I are working on a project right now looking at the effect that the mortgage interest deduction has had on the white-black wealth gap over time. So the mortgage interest deduction is a policy which allows homeowners to deduct the interest that they pay on their mortgage from their taxes at the end of the year. Because white households are more likely to own their home than black households, and among homeowners, white homeowners own more expensive houses than black homeowners, the mortgage interest deduction delivers greater benefits to white households overall than black households. And what we're trying to do in this project is to try to understand how the accumulation of the benefits of the mortgage interest deduction over time may have affected the trajectory of the white-black wealth gap, which has also been increasing over time. So one really important area for future research on the topic of racial inequality in housing concerns racial discrimination in the home appraisal process. There have been a lot of reports recently documenting how black homeowners are more likely to get their home underappraised when they try to get home equity loans than are white homeowners. And there's evidence that racial discrimination in the appraisal process is part of the problem. So I'm looking forward to future research on the topic that more clearly tests for the presence of racial discrimination in home appraisals, and also for the potential mechanisms through which black households might be being discriminated against in the appraisal process. So one possible set of policy reforms that could help to address issues of racial inequality in housing would be to increase housing supply. And this could not only reduce some of the exclusionary barriers that have kept black households and other racial minority households from being able to live in white affluent communities, but could more generally lower the cost of housing and ease the housing affordability crunch that has disproportionately affected less affluent households.